Armie Hammer. Cannibal Consequences. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. I have previously analysed Armie Hammer around the time that his Cannibal controversy arose and explained by reference to a body of evidence why he is a narcissist. He's popped up again in the news, which provides me with a useful opportunity to explain a number of factors to you pertinent to the narcissistic dynamic and the principle of collateral consequences. One of the things that often gets to our victims is a desire to get some form of revenge or justice over us. It's understandable. We draw you in, we spin you around, we devalue you, and then often we spit you out and leave you dumped by the curb as we race off with somebody else. We always appear to come up smelling of roses. You are horrified, hurt, angry, upset, bewildered, mystified, puzzled and confused. You may well have lost money. You may well be wondering what you're going to do to survive moving forward. Your mental health may be affected. Your physical health may well have been affected. You may well have lost friendships or had them damaged as a consequence of your involvement with the narcissist, as you were sucked in and promised such a wonderful world whereby you didn't tend to those relationships any longer. And despite people attempting to warn you, subsumed by the manipulations and your own emotional thinking, you failed to pay heed until it was too late. Understandably, some, but not all, of our victims then want some form of justice. They want to ensure that the unfair behaviour that we have meted out towards them is visited by some kind of retribution, and invariably emotional thinking gets hold of that trait in certain victims and corrupts it. In other instances, there is a desire for revenge, sometimes coupled to justice, but otherwise it might be as a consequence of the corruption of certain narcissistic traits, so that your emotional thinking gets hold of your pride, so that you think to yourself, who the fuck does this douche canoe think he is? Treating me like this. I've been made to look an absolute prize plum. I'm not tolerating being treated like this. I'm going to get my own back on this individual. It might be that your narcissistic trait of anger becomes corrupted, that you're angry at the way that you've been treated, and therefore you think it's time to clobber the ass of the narcissist. This is understandable, but invariably at that juncture, as I've explained in other videos, you're going to fuck it up because you're not approaching dealing with the narcissist in a level-headed fashion using logic and with reduced emotional thinking rather. Whilst there are many people who think, because they understand the narcissist, that they are approaching it logically, the simple fact is it follows so close on their continuing involvement with the narcissist, their emotional thinking can only be in one place, very high, which means that they will make repeated errors, and all they'll end up doing is giving fuel to the narcissist, inviting more retribution and unpleasant behaviour from the narcissist by way of malign hoovers and smearing, and increasing their own emotional thinking so that they remain obsessed with what the narcissist is doing, that they enter into some form of war with the narcissist. Of course, this challenges the narcissist, but understand, we are better equipped to deal with this than you, because we have no remorse, we have no guilt, we have no conscience, and you're giving us what we want, fuel. We have no hesitation in going around and complaining about your conduct, perhaps complaining about you to the police, smearing you to friends and family, making you look bad, and this invariably hurts you more than it hurts us. And therefore, whilst the temptation for some form of justice or revenge is huge when you've been badly treated by the narcissist, it isn't in your best interests to go down that route, something I regularly explain to certain of my clients. Instead, what you have to rely upon is the implementation of a total no-contact regime to protect yourself, to recover, and let that emotional thinking go down. But of course, that doesn't sit with the concept of seeing some form of revenge or justice. And one of the points is this. The best form and the most effective for both you and causing a problem for the narcissist is to implement a total no-contact regime. Because we hate it. We cannot stand it. But unfortunately for you, you don't get to see what the impact is upon the narcissist because, by its very nature, if you are to impose a total no-contact regime, you can't witness what's going on with the narcissist. And this, of course, irritates and disappoints people. They want to see the narcissist suffering. Not because they're a bad person, but their emotional empathy for the narcissist has been eroded as a consequence of the abuse and the treatment that the narcissist has meted out against them. So it's entirely understandable that they will then respond in this way towards the narcissist. They want to see the narcissist fuming. They want to see the narcissist losing their shit. They want to see the narcissist losing their job or their next relationship fail. And invariably what happens is the narcissist rides off into the sunset without nary a look over their shoulder towards you. Instead, what I explained to you, the much safer option is for you to watch my videos and understand the impact that no contact has upon us. To understand the various ways that the narcissist feels and thinks, for instance, being envious of your contentment. This enables you to understand and, in essence, feel better about the situation. And the situation with Armie Hammer also provides you with an opportunity to not only understand the collateral consequences of a narcissist's behaviour, but in effect, although you may not have personally been affected by Mr. Hammer, to understand that life isn't as rosy as it might appear for the narcissist, and therefore perhaps make you feel somewhat better about your own situation. The article written by Liam Kelly tells us Armie Hammer, Cannibal fantasy scandal cost me $13 million, pounds rather, but I was an asshole. Only 2 years ago, Armie Hammer had the world at his feet. The actor shot to fame playing the Winklevoss twins in the Facebook biopic, The Social Network, and had won critical acclaim for his role in Call Me By Your Name. He played a lead role in Kenneth Branagh's adaptation of Agatha Christie's Death on the Nile, and had lined up roles in a Broadway play and a television series about the Watergate scandal. Then his world came crashing down. In 2021, Hammer, 36, was accused of rape, emotional and physical abuse, and depraved sexual fantasies, including cannibalism. Apart from one Instagram post in which he decried the early allegations as bullshit, he has remained silent, assertion of control by staying in a position of withdrawal. But he broke his silence this weekend to reveal that he contemplated suicide, pity play, after the accusations emerged, and that he was sexually abused as a teenager, which he says changed his behaviour and how he interacted with women. Triangulation, pity play. Hammer, who claims to have been abused by a pastor at his local church in California when he was 13, said, "Sexuality was introduced to me in a scary way, where I had no control. My interest then went to, I want to have control in the situation, sexually." Now, it might be the case that this event never occurred, but his narcissism causes him to believe that it did, as a means then to bring up an invented past for the purposes of a pity play, and to nullify threats to control by saying, it wasn't my fault that I behaved this way because I was abused myself, therefore, in effect, a lack of accountability and blame shifting. Or it may be the case that this did actually happen to him, and therefore he is bringing up the past, and it is actually true, as a means to blame shift and deflect from his behaviours now. Having become a pariah in the wake of the claims against him, he moved to the Cayman Islands and briefly worked as a timeshare salesman. Los Angeles police investigated the rape claim. Hammer denies all the allegations, denial, and no charges have ever been brought against him. But his acting career is effectively over. So it may well be the case that what he was accused of didn't happen, or those that made the allegations didn't want to pursue it. And accordingly, he is innocent of those charges. I beg your pardon, he's innocent of the suggestions that were made against him. Indeed, no charges being brought against him. But the fact is that those allegations, which appear to be founded on evidence, even though it wasn't acted upon, have had collateral consequence for him, because his acting career is effectively over. He was dropped from most of his film projects, collateral consequence, as well by his talent agency, collateral consequence. Courtney Vucekovich, who dated Hammer in 2020, told the Daily Mail the following year that he had manipulated her, manipulation, into master-slave fetishes, assertion of control, and fantasized about cannibalism. He was really into saying he wants to break one of your ribs and eat it, she said, like barbecue it and eat it. Another woman, Efrosina Angelova, later came forward and said the actor, the great-grandson of the American oil tycoon Armie Hammer, had violently raped her. Sexual violence, lack of boundary control. Hammer said the episode was consensual and that he and Angelova had planned it in advance via Facebook Messenger. This alleged rape was a scene that was her idea, he said, blame shifting. She planned all of the details out, all the way down to what Starbucks I would see her at, how I would follow her home, how her front door would be open and unlocked, and I would come in, and we would engage in what is called a consensual non-consent scene. He also claimed that he deleted the messages, and his lawyers have unsuccessfully subpoenaed Facebook's parent company to retrieve them. Again, this could possibly be a revision of history, or it might be true. If I still had these messages, I would have been able to put this to bed in 0.5 seconds, said Hammer in the interview. Speaking to Air Mail, the newsletter of former Vanity Fair editor Graydon Carter, the actor said he came close to killing himself as his life unravelled 2 years ago. Pity play. I just walked out into the ocean and swam out as far as I could and hoped that either I drowned or was hit by a boat or eaten by a shark, he said. Then I realised that my kids were still on shore and that I couldn't do that to my kids. False compassion. Hammer, who has 2 children with his ex-wife, the Texas bakery chain owner Elizabeth Chambers, said his interest in bondage, dominance and sadomasochism stemmed from being sexually abused. It's actually the case that it stems from his need to assert control and draw fuel from people, but he doesn't realise that, and instead his narcissism has caused him to attribute this interest to being sexually abused. He insisted he had never had non-consensual sex with anybody, because consent is a very important part of the BDSM world. You have to have that trust. He estimates that the scandal has cost him as much as $16 million. I'm not only broke, I'm massively in debt, he told Air Mail. Collateral consequence. From the start of his career, Hammer did not rely on his family's inherited wealth, although he did get a loan from my family to pay for some legal fees, he said, residual benefit. He added that he's not asked for nor received any further financial help. There was a point in all of this where I had to have a friend help me buy groceries, he said. Pity play. He does not want or expect to be forgiven for his behaviour. I'm here to own my mistakes, take accountability for the fact that I was an asshole, that I was selfish, that I used people to make me feel better, and when I was done, moved on, he said, and treated people more poorly than they should have treated. False compassion, false contrition. All of this, of course, enables you to understand what can happen to a narcissist as a consequence of his manipulative behaviour, whereby it was focused on in the moment and had no due regard for the collateral consequences, namely that his career would go down the crapper, and then he would be left in financial difficulties. Of course, his narcissism still enables him to assert control, and notice that he continues with the blame shifting. Although he says that he was the asshole, he basically attributes it to sexual abuse that he may or may not have suffered when he was younger. And this enables you to see various aspects of the narcissistic dynamic, whilst understanding, of course, that the narcissist does have a downside in terms of the collateral consequences that has been occasioned to this particular narcissist. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.